Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's in-depth ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, we've certainly seen a lot of movement in the models and their forecast over the last week, and I really want to start you off with some of the important reasons as to why we continue to see major model-to-model differences. And it begins with this graphic put together by Ryan Maui. I'm glad that he lets me use this. It's a great figure. What it shows you, the skill scores in blue of the ECMWF and in red the GFS, and I've shown it to you quite a bit. What I want to take note of here is that throughout April and even into early May, the model performance was well above the 90% mark. We of course saw the GFS drop out a few times, including a major way at the end of May and beginning of June. But what I'd like to really point out here is how the skill scores have really just dropped off precipitously lately. And there's a lot of reasons for this, but the biggest reason that I can point to here is what's been going on when we look at the total momentum of the atmosphere. So we look at these plots quite a bit. We've seen global angular momentum really plummet here from middle of May now to almost the end of June. So what happens when we get this loss of momentum is so much of it is lost at the jet stream level. If I were to show you this great graphic put together here by Victor Cassini out of Northern Illinois University. It's an interesting graph. So here you are at the equator, and this is going north, and that was going south. And what we're looking at here is Earth relative atmospheric angular momentum. And now what I want you to pay attention to is average momentum is here on that dashed line, and currently we're here, below average. And this is between 30 degrees north and 50 degrees north, right at the heart of where the jet stream is. So when you ask why the models each run give us a new solution and flip-flop so much, it's because it's very difficult to initialize getting this right. That's the jet stream level winds right now, and they're an absolute mess. There is probably 7 separate waves that I can count orbiting the North Pole. It's weakened, it's broken up into many pieces, and we look at that and then try to predict where it's going to go into the future. So the issue here with the models flip-flopping a lot is that it is very difficult for them to get a good initial condition. And that's one of the reasons why summer weather forecasting is so difficult. It's much easier in winter when we have much stronger dynamical flow out of the jet stream. There's another component to this as well, and it's happened down in the tropics. So what you're now looking at is 850 millibar flow. So it's about a mile above our heads. And what I'm really paying attention to is the position of this large subtropical ridge and the trade winds to the south of it. Now we're going to talk about these more in just a few moments and their influence on the pattern in the United States and what this little tropical feature is here. By the way, this is called Celia. That hurricane is going to stay out to open ocean. But it's this trade wind behavior excuse me, that I think is going to unlock an important story for us. And it's the story actually being told a bit of a half world away. It's over here. The trade winds are very strong. Coming across this part of the Pacific, and that, as we've had so many times been discussing this year, that's a telltale sign of that's a strong La Niña signal. Now lately there's been a lot of discussion about La Niña. In fact, on June 21st, out of the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia, they released an article about how they're going to put a La Niña watch on for the upcoming season. So that would be our fall, their spring. But they made an interesting statement about how La Niña had reached an end. The current one had reached an end. And this is a very well-written article, but I don't want you to be confused by that opening statement because they clarify later in the article that several pieces are still very much in the atmosphere behaving like there's a La Niña. And I want to convey to you what that risk is going forward. So let's look at the ocean temperatures first. And just remember, the ocean temperatures are the symptom for the atmosphere's behavior. And what I'm looking at here is there's still quite a bit of cooler water here. Some colder water surfaced right up next to South America. And those trade winds you'll see in a few moments are still very strong in this area. This cold water hasn't gone away, neither has this, keeping the position of the warmest water just north of Hawaii. Now the thing about a flow pattern like this is that it will continue to favor more ridging events here and troughing along the west coast. That increases the position of the jet stream more toward the north, running through the Midwest, between the Midwest and the Great Lakes, therefore keeping ridges kind of more firmly in place here. But the warm ocean temperatures here, should any tropical system develop, will have that energy to work with. But overall, what I'm trying to say here is that some of the things we've been discussing throughout much of the spring and early summer haven't gone away, despite the models maybe flip-flopping a lot on what's going on here. Now, would we expect this La Niña to just really resurface a lot of cold water? No, we don't expect that. And here's the reason why. This is an animation of ocean temperatures going back to May and now working through June, or actually late April through May and June, that show over on the South American side of the Pacific Ocean to the Australian side of the Pacific Ocean, with this being the surface, what the ocean temperatures are doing with respect to depth. And this large tongue of warm water here, that's been there for quite some time. The cooler water that you see in this vicinity, that is kind of the telltale sign of the La Niña. But what I want you to notice is that as we go forward in time, we no longer have deep reserves of cold water to surface. So despite the stronger trade winds, don't expect the ocean temperatures, because of the time of year it is, and because of this ocean temperature pattern versus depth, to really reflect that. But I still have to say that the base state of the atmosphere is very much driven by La Niña. And I'd even say that the MJO is playing kind of second fiddle to it. Here is today going through the next 15 days. And once again, the trade winds right here. And that's why I showed you this. Okay, these trade winds are much stronger than normal. And they seem to remain that way into early July. Now, why does that matter? Well, it matters for a couple of reasons. When we have strong trade winds and La Niña symptoms in the atmosphere, La Niña signals, in the atmosphere, we do tend to get more troughing off of the west coast of North America. The MJO is just barely weakly moving through null space over the next few days, which means it didn't pop out way out here into the Indian Ocean and come north of Australia. And it likes to curls around and stays somewhere over in the West Pacific as things go forward in this pattern. But I don't think that the MJO has as strong of a pull on the overall forecast as the La Niña does. So just thinking about that, let's talk about what the jet stream is going to do. So as I play this forward, this is today, you're looking at jet stream level winds, and we play it through Friday into Saturday and Sunday. Now, this was not well forecast. In other words, if you go back over the last couple of weeks and say, well, Eric, did the models nail the fact that the very end of June was going to favor troughing in here? They didn't. Why is it there? Most likely due to upstream temporary blocking. See how this is all a mess over here? That slowed it down and allowed some colder air to dip. That's part of the story for this. But that's what's going to bring in some cooler conditions we've been watching all week showing up in the northern tier of the United States. But you still see there's a trough off the west coast. And playing through next week, early next week, into next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, what I am not seeing is more important than what I am seeing. And let me explain what I mean. I would be looking for, in terms of a pattern shift, to get rid of this. I'd be looking for splits, especially in the Gulf of Alaska, where the jet stream went way up like this, a piece came around to the south like that, and then it all met together at some point in the United States. That's not there. The jet stream is still behaving like that. Now, it's got a bit of a northward shift in its position. And what this particular setup means is, to the south of it, here, the risk of having drier conditions is very present. Along this, we could get some ridge riders that come out and flow in this direction. The southwest monsoon will continue. In fact, as we go into the first week of July, the models try to build that ridge. See it? So we get ridge riding storms that come over the top. The ridge, which is here, moves over towards Texas, and that flow comes around, and that's what fuels the southwest monsoon. So that means in this pattern, the area that I'm most concerned about is part of the MidSouth. And in the near term, that extends into the eastern Cornbelt. How long it is there is still of an unknown. But we need to look at what the models are suggesting. So we're going to do this two ways. The first way is by looking at the 12Z European model run for the next 15 days. This is the ensemble. And what we do see is Canadian storm track. We see strong southwestern monsoon. We see weak frontal boundaries that come sliding through here, and they likely line up with the flow coming around the monsoon, increasing rainfall chances in the western Corn Belt. I'd like to be very clear. Even though you see a large area that's wetter than normal here, this doesn't mean everybody in this spot gets rain. I actually think we'd extend better chances of rain farther to the north as well. But this model trend of keeping this area with a bit of a drier bias has been very robust. We've seen it in all of the models we use. I'm just showing you the European here, but it shows up. The latest run went a little bit less dry, but it's still there. This is over the next 10 days, 240 hours. looking at the probability of getting less than a ½ inch of rain. So the higher the probability, the drier it is. So do you notice this region in through here showing up with the drier signals? Same thing here, but this is more common this time of year than it would be down south. Okay, in the middle, monsoon, stalled fronts, wetter upper Midwest. Please understand, this does not mean there won't be storms in this area. In fact, we're going to see in a few minutes that there's going to be storms. It's just that the likelihood of widespread kind of drought erasing rains, I'm not seeing that. That's part of this story. CPC is echoing this as well. Their outlook for that first full week of July, they have this region here under the risk of rapid onset of drought. And I have to agree with them. That makes sense to me. That whole area, I think, is going to have to be watched carefully. And also, once we get into that first full week of July, notice that the models and the CPC guidance suggest above average temperatures once again here. This has been a place where it's not shut off. We've had the heat here all the while, but they're extending it back up through the plains. So that piece is important to add to what we also had released today, which is the new drought monitor. And now, over the last few runs, we've seen expansion of drought here in parts of the southeast, and also right into this corner here and in parts of Minnesota. So now we're starting to see some patchy drought pockets kind of open up here in that same area. Now, if you ask me what are the two most important graphs I can show you today, it's the next two. This is the last 7 days of rainfall compared to normal. So this has been what the precipitation pattern has looked like when we've had all of the heat in place. And this complex of storms in through here, don't forget, did quite a bit of damage to the crop. We also had severe weather east, an active southwest monsoon, and thankfully this has been a blessing to see the rains that have gotten into this part of Montana, that Golden Triangle area. But the second map I told you that's important is this one. This is the last 2 weeks. And what I'm trying to get you to see when you look at this map is these darker reds represent those places that are already vulnerable going into the forecast we just shared, which look like this for the next 15 days. So pause it here and have a look, and then pause it again here, and you start to see these two things overlaying with one another. Now, we did have new European weekly forecasts come out today. That's the one that looks out there about 45 days. And I'm going to share this with you, but I'm also at the same time going to tell you I don't have much confidence in it given the way that it was initialized. And what I mean by that is it was initialized with a very messy low momentum pattern, which means its skill in predicting is going to go down. But here it is anyway. This is the whole of the month of July as forecast by today's European weekly forecast. It's been consistent with above average precipitation here. It's been drier in parts of the MidSouth. But the wetter weather you see here is early in the time period. It's early. Later on in July, we see this area going drier. Now, to see drier conditions reemerge here is very consistent with our La Niña, which at the beginning we kind of proposed was showing signs of being quite strong. Now, this isn't a slam dunk guarantee forecast. It's just I'm trying to put the meteorology and maybe separate it a bit from the attempt to explain the model away. Does that make sense? I think that the jet stream is going to prefer more ridging here, and I think that means more regional drought development, which is not good. There's a lot of growers in here that need more precipitation. I also would tell you this. Don't be surprised if in my next video on Monday, I've got major updates to this as I've seen more data and more changes to the flow. So this is very much a fluid situation, if you will, with respect to the forecast. And that is why I started you off with this graphic to show you that we are in a time period of lower predictability because of that. All right, we do have another wild card with this, and that was that the National Hurricane Center today started to really identify this African easterly wave, and they're now giving it a 20% chance at developing into something as it approaches the Lesser Antilles, which are here. And that's why I showed you those trade winds, because it would guide whatever is here into the Caribbean. And there's big questions. Does this, at some point, this would be more than 10 days from now, does this get into the Gulf and maybe return some moisture to some dry places in the Gulf? We don't know, but we can look at what the models are suggesting. And the Europeans attempting to take it, and no, we don't know the strength, and giving it a pretty good chance at getting into this area. I'll watch to see if it gets in the Gulf. If it does, that's important to watch given the warm waters there and the flow possibly pushing some of that moisture inland. We need it in certain places. I'll also mention this. We need to keep an eye on systems that develop in the East Pacific on this side of Central America and Mexico, because there are times when these come up and turn into Mexico and then move across Texas, delivering rainfall that's needed. I'm not seeing one now. I'm not seeing that one now, but we just need to be on the lookout for that. All right. One thing that this potential tropical system could deal with, though, is that there's quite a bit of Saharan dust coming out right now and over the weekend. And if that system has to chew on that dust, it could really potentially weaken it. So just another thing that I'll be watching, and I'll give you an update about that one on Monday. So now you see what I'm thinking about here in the both the near and the long term. What I'm going to finish the video doing is kind of giving you a bit more details on what we're expecting right now. So our all-hazard weather map, this is kind of the end of the 3 heat waves that went through the country. Still very hot down here from Texas all the way over to Georgia and Florida, triple-digit heat. What we've got to the north, these are air quality alerts, and you see right here, this is a severe thunderstorm watch. So we've certainly got a few pieces to keep an eye on. Our satellite imagery today, this is late this afternoon, shows you, I think, exactly what we're going to continue to see. See the active southwest monsoon. In fact, you can even see, watch right here over Nevada. That's the upper level low that yesterday was, or the last 2 days actually, was over California, producing all the rain in the south. Heavy thunderstorms here, a lot of lightning. But scattered convection, that will be the name of the game through this area. It's hit or miss. And we're going to see if we can get a system to drag a front. It's actually right here right now through the Cornbelt to possibly bring in some chances for rain early. Let's talk about that. This is what the Storm Prediction Center is watching today. So we've got this area to keep a very close eye on, and also here. This is just today here on the 23rd. Tomorrow it's going to open up to a large area of the northern plains, and it's going to move east by the time we get into Saturday. So what we're watching, this is the 18Z NAM, looks like this. So this evening, the model got it. Scattered convection here, same here, and also in this region and throughout the Great Basin. As we go through the overnight hours tonight, we're going to just have to watch these thunderstorms on radar to see how they move through this area and also through the plains here. Remember, those are the 2 areas we're keeping an eye on, right here and here. But there's also storms up the eastern seaboard and the southwest monsoon still going. But watch what happens as we go into Friday. This is Friday morning, Friday midday, and Friday evening. Now, if you notice, we kept some storms in parts of the western Cornbelt, but the new system is moving through, and it begins to initiate what could be on Friday night into Saturday morning, several large complexes of storms. I am worried that these are going to be strong to severe, producing straight-line wind damage and maybe some hail. And we don't need to lose any more acreage here to severe weather. But these slide through and come right through the upper Midwest, western Cornbelt. We need more of the rain from them, though, to get, to get here. That's where we need to bring it through. You saw that earlier when I showed you how dry those areas were. And I'm just not fully seeing it yet. Also, do you notice on Saturday how the flow of these storms is coming out of the southeast? That's the nose of those trades pushing in there. There's also just an area here bringing the flow around, high pressure, doing that. So a lot of neat things taking shape here, but we're going to have to watch this system very closely as it comes through. But every time I talk about the Canadian storm track, that's it right there. Okay, from here, let's do our multi-model analysis. All right, remembering that these are lower resolution than what I just showed you. GFS is on the left, Europeans on the right. So do we capture the same events? Yeah, we do. This is Friday night. Look at the European going through Saturday. It's there. There's that flow coming around that high, pushing the moisture into the southeast. So that frontal boundary does attempt to go through the eastern Cornbelt, but it's broken up, and therefore not everybody's going to get rain out of this. Playing it on forward into next Tuesday and Wednesday, the next system rolls through Canada. Weekly brings a front here just through the northern interior of the United States. It's in both models. And then we get out here toward Wednesday of next week and Thursday, another low going through Canada, brings a weak front. See what we're talking about? And that's it. Now, I don't know where this is going to be next Friday. Both models stretch a front in through here. Sure, it could come through and bring some much needed rain into some places that really need it. But I got to get it farther to the south. And we need to see if it's going to be capable of doing that. We do get a hint that out there by July the 3rd, the flow pattern doing this, that this could have a front that could sag far enough to the south to bring some rain into that eastern Cornbelt, which needs it. But I got to get it south into the MidSouth, Red River Valley of the south. But notice what you see. Remember us talking so much about these West Coast troughs? There again. And therefore that flow keeps coming back to that configuration. So what that leads to, okay, as we play this forward, is going out there to the 5th, 6th, and 7th, we end up getting flow that delivers ridge riders. And that's why out there we see this. See it connecting up with the monsoon? That tells you Canadian storm track, weak fronts, ridge riders, better chances of moisture here. What about this region? That's what I want you to watch the model trends with me about. Okay? Temperatures. Last 2 weeks, we have seen quite a bit of heat. And if we compare it to normal, some parts of the central United States have now seen temperatures averaging over a 15-day time period 6 to 10 degrees above normal. Northwest has been cool, but the heat's coming there soon. Let's go have a look. Here is today's highs. We've already experienced these. Very hot northern plains, southern plains, and southeast. As we go forward, Friday, very hot in the Central Valley of California, but look at the cold air advancing here. This is that shot of colder air Friday getting into Saturday and Sunday. Sweeping through, cooling things off. I mean, this is nice. These are nice temperatures. But while that's occurring, heat builds back into the west. I think this is the hottest it has been in the Northwest all year long. Let's watch this transition into Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Now the heat begins to return here once again. Beyond that, take a look at this series of graphics. It's a 5-day sliding window. So there's the cooler weather coming in to the central United States Canadian prairie. That's the monsoon down here. About the heat as the heat builds west. We just saw that. Now going forward, the latest run attempts to bring back in quite a bit of above average temperatures from Texas to the eastern Cornbelt. Keeps the coolest air in Canada. And then you notice as you go out there toward the end of the time period, which is just now like the week of the 4th of July, see it building the heat back in? That's very consistent with what we've seen the longer range models do, and I'd like to show you those again because that gives the risk of drought in through here again as the temperatures are once again forecast to come back up for the month of July there. So there's some consistency in the long range, but there's a lot of variability along the way. So don't be surprised if we wake up tomorrow morning and we see a new solution and we try to explain it away. Same thing's going to happen all weekend. Got to get that flow to really come up in the jet stream to improve predictability. But this is summer. This is what we tend to get this time of year. So I'll do my best to explain it to you, and I'll talk to you again on Monday. Thanks.